The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome to Sisters Speak. You're here with me, Mariam.
And here with me, Sonia.
And welcome to Sisters Speak. Today we'll be speaking about two of my favourite topics, which will be integrity and introspection. I think it's been quite a while since we talked about introspection and having reflections. But before we do that, Sonia, what is our show about?
Our show is a platform for young girls, young Muslim girls on this show, to just talk about current affairs, things that affect them. That could be from social media. We spoke about cultures and just any topic that's on our mind. And I just want to say that any opinions and thoughts that we share only reflect our own opinions. And we also, I forgot the next bit of the disclaimer.
We respect all other opposing views.
Or similar views, yeah.
Yes. And if they want to join in the discussion, how can they do that?
So you can DM us or message us on Instagram, which is @SistersSpeak. You can also WhatsApp on 07779 481822, and we are also on Facebook Live right now.
So do join the discussion. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to delve right into the main crux of the show, which is actually no. First, we're going to do the segment Thought of the Week. It's been a while, and I'm just really happy that Sonia's back. So for those who don't know, Sonia hasn't been here for a while. So I'm very excited to have her back.
Because she was making a film.
She was...
I wasn't just slacking off.
No, I was coming to that. She was producing a film about Luton, which will be released soon.
Yeah,
to the public.
Inshallah. Obviously, I will tell everyone.
So those details will come up later. All for a good cause, but I did miss her dearly, and I think this show did miss her as well, and her charisma. So it's really nice to have you back. And on that note, I would like to ask you, what is your thought of the week? So for those who don't know, Thought of the Week is a segment where we share something insightful, something that we've been thinking about, or just a personal anecdote.
Okay, so my thought of the week is very silly and random, because the reason why it's silly and random is because I feel like at work, at home, and everywhere in life right now, everything's really serious, because it just generally is, and the state of current affairs, like you just have to be alert and switched on, and you should be. You absolutely should be. But my thought of the week is so far away from that, because I started to think, and I said this last week as well, what do I do for myself to give myself space, time, which is kind of what our show is going to be about today as well. And one of the things is make tea for myself. And I know Mariam is smiling because you're having tea right now as we speak, because it makes you, I don't know, it makes you feel calm, gives you comfort, whatever it is. And I think it's good for people to have something like that. And everyone should have a thing. Everyone should have a thing. I know, like, one of my work colleagues, he will say, binge watch a Netflix show or whatever it is. Or someone that says, go for a drive. As long as it's healthy and not unhealthy and like good, and then it's okay to have a thing for yourself.
So do you think tea is your thing that makes you feel?
I don't know. I think I got inspired by when you had yours just now, and I thought, oh yeah, I love a cup of tea. I don't want one now, but I do love.
It's like a warm hug.
I just had a hot chocolate before I walked in as well. So yeah, it's a warm
tea,
hug.
hot chocolate, nice, a hot beverage on a cold day.
I don't know what my thing is yet, so maybe that's the thought of the week. Find your thing. And I don't mean like your passion, life, this and that. I just mean something that gives you that little bit of happiness and comfort.
Extra boost.
At the end of the day, even if it's sitting with a blanket wrapped around you for a bit.
How do you know it's your thing? How are you going to explore that? How are you going to define?
Because when say you've been out all day, 14 hours, and it's just raining and you're just tired, and just there's one thing that you want, that's when you know what your thing is.
Love that. I think that for me, tea is actually that thing.
It's tea for you, 100%. Yeah.
She can vouch. Well, how can you vouch?
I know you.
She knows me.
And I've seen you have tea here many times. And you actually know if it's good or if it's bad. It means a lot to you. It's an important factor of your life.
It's just so funny. It does mean a lot to me. And I think it's such a social thing as well.
It can be.
In our culture as well. It's such a social thing. And even recently, my dad's family came over and they all just designated me to make the tea.
Because they're good at it.
Yeah, that's probably why. But we can maybe, people in our listeners can maybe test that one day. Maybe I'll make tea for everyone. Who knows? My thought of the week is a bit different. It's probably more on the side of the show in terms of introspection and maybe integrity as well. I think those things do intercept. My thought of the week is just having a good opinion of people and just assuming the best of someone. I think a lot of the times it's very easy to kind of fall into this trap where you just want to go into conclusions that someone is treating you badly because they're a bad person, but you actually don't contextualize it. And that's not to say you justify someone's behavior, but it doesn't mean that you can characterize someone. So I think for me personally, I have been really thinking about how can I look at my own heart and like how do I react to someone when they don't meet my needs, or if they do something that is maybe even uncharacteristic of them, how do I respond to that? Because I feel like that foreshadows the plight of my own heart. And recently I kind of experienced something where someone behaved really uncharacteristically and they completely were reticent and they were withdrawn. And I kind of saw them as someone that holds I held them to a very high esteem, and I saw them as someone that has very high integrity. However, what they did was just completely withdraw. And for me, it was quite hard for me to reconcile and understand why would they do such a thing. I don't have access to them now, but to me, that was kind of a reflection. It's very easy for me to kind of call them, multiple things.
Yeah.
But actually, it's actually more my own character to think, actually, I'm going to assume best of them because they've already shown me consistently that they're a good person. And I can only...
Do you think, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
That you're saying here it's important to separate the action and the person, even though the person enacts the action, but you're saying let that not be a whole conclusion and evaluation of their character and personality. Let me not form an opinion and have bad opinions about them because of this thing.
Yeah, 100%.
This thing can be separate.
I think
this can just be something that happened, but not them.
100%. I think characterizing someone or defining as someone based on one instance, it shouldn't be the case. I think it's a reflection of your own heart because you would want the same with someone else to assume the best of you.
Yes.
And humans make mistakes. And some may argue, well, if someone causes you harm or someone like hurts you, then have that conversation with them. And if you can't have that conversation, it's only you can tell and kind of ascertain whether the extent of what they did to you is justifiable or not.
So that kind of reminds me of this quote or saying, which is like, you can do 100 good things and one bad thing, and people remember that bad thing. But I don't like that quote because it's like, why do you only remember that bad thing? Depending on how severe it was and the severity of it, it can be, if it's something that was a mistake and then they carry on doing good things afterwards, I feel like like you said, you can't judge people on one thing that they did. And it's sad because, like you said, when you hold someone at high regard and a high standard and it's one drop, it's not really fair, is it? We're only human. People are going to make mistakes sometimes. Yeah. Again, it depends on the severity of the situation.
100%. And I think it's really looking at yourself. I think for me, that's what kind of my thought of the week is because it's how I respond to that. It's my reaction and how I'm going to define the situation as opposed to what that person did. Because, like I said, like this person was consistently such a good person. Okay. So why would I assume the worst of them when they've already shown me good?
That's very mature of you, Mariam.
Okay. Maybe. I don't know.
It is mature. I'm telling you, because just something that naturally would just be like, oh no, I hate them now and this and this and this. But if you're actually taking time, stepping back and thinking, okay, let me, you're proper taking your time to think about it and not jump to conclusions. That's mature. You're an adult now.
I'm an adult.
Today.
From today. On the 8th of November. On my mum's birthday.
Oh, congratulations to your mum. She has given birth to an adult now.
Oh, wow. No, I think recently, I feel like life has really humbled me.
Wow. That is just a quote. That should be our quote for today's show. Life has humbled us. I agree with you saying.
Life has really humbled me because and this is why I want to do this topic, introspection and integrity, because I feel like the more you exercise introspection and the more you think about yourself and actually the intrinsic values you have, it influences your extrinsic relationships. And so for me, it's just thinking about, okay, how do I want to be perceived, and how am I as a person, and how is people receiving me? So when you think about like your interactions with different types of groups, and your interactions are going to be different for different groups of people, and the way you're going to be received is going to be also according to those kind of groups, because your professional life, your personal life, they all have different dynamics. But I think what I've been thinking about is your core values and your principles, and how does that manifest in the way you interact. And I think that should be constant for me. So what's your thoughts on that?
I love that you're thinking about that, and it's something we should all think about, because you have to take care of these things. You have to think, how am I going to be perceived? What are my principles? I kind of hate that we have to think about that stuff because it's so long, and it's like everything is a process and a journey, and this is part of being an adult, isn't it? You're not a kid anymore. You can't just do anything and say anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the principles thing really struck me, because what are your morals and principles? Forget someone else. What do you stand for? What do you stand by? What do you stand against? That's a really good thing to have. Again, I do think it's a very adult thing. So it's maybe if there's people that are young that are listening, maybe you're in the process of it still and not there
So
yet.
you're only 1 year.
I know. We don't need to shout about that on the radio. We are similar age. But even people that are way older, if you're listening, you should have these things. Write them down.
I think it's really important at any stage of your life that you should be thinking about these things, because the more older you get, the more responsibility you have. And the more older you get, I think the more life challenges you will face and be confronted with. And so therefore, you just want to make someone's life easier. Why do you want to make it difficult by being a horrible person?
Yeah,
you know?
Well, there's a lot of people in this world. We're a mixed batch. You can't all be the same. Can't all be good.
I think it's about learning about yourself, and I think it's not to deny that people don't have trauma and they don't have mental health problems, and people are justified to kind of stand up against this stuff, and that sometimes can be misconstrued as someone being awful and horrible, but they have a full right to stand up for themselves. It's how you do it, and it's and at that point, it's not your responsibility to see how that person reacts, because you have a right to stand up for yourself. But I think for me personally right now, it's just I'm more reflecting on how do I want to refine my character, and I want to be more attuned to myself.
Wow. That kind of also reminds me of the quote of, it's not what you say or what you do, it's how you say and how you do it. If you want to stand up for yourself, if you want to put your foot down, etc., so on, do it. But it's how you do it. Because you could be perceived as the bad guy, or you can be like, oh, I like her, she sticks to her guns and her morals, and she's got something going on.
Yeah, I think having, being polite and having integrity in all kind of situations is really important. And I think something it derives from our religion. And I think I speak about it a lot. And I think that's where I'm inspired by. I think about the Prophet ﷺ, and who was confronted with so many types of individuals, people that were assassinating his character in all fronts. Yet he stayed firm on the faith, and he stayed firm in terms of his character, and he always spread goodness. And that's not to say that, there was never instance that he was naive. He knew when someone was going to be detrimental for him, but he was strategic. And I think those things can coexist. You don't need to, you don't have to think that if I'm always kind, that people are going to walk all over me or take advantage of me. That's not the case. You learn from your lessons. It's not that I have never experienced someone taking advantage of me. I've had it multiple occasions, but I think it's where you can draw boundaries and you can exercise them
and go as well.
Sorry?
Sometimes just let things go. Being that, I guess we have to say, the bigger person, like you used the Prophet as an example as well. If you might know they're detrimental to you, you might know they're bad, but you have to think, I'm just not going to let this affect me, or I can rise above this and I know how to deal with this situation.
How do you let things go? Because I think that's a lot of people struggle with that.
Okay. So trying to give examples from if you're in college or university or a workspace or just any kind of communal area that you might spend a lot of time, that's not your house. So I'm not giving home life as an example, because if you have an argument with your sister, that's not the example I'm giving. But if you're outside, out in the real world or whatever, doing whatever you're feeling in that moment, this is something I've actually felt as well. You could be rage, anger, everything. If people get infuriated sometimes, it just happens. But the minute you get yourself out of the actual environment, and I mean physical space, it helps so much. Just removing yourself from the situation. And I don't mean talking, removing. I mean physical. Be out, be outside, be in your house, be in the library, be in a coffee shop, just somewhere else. For me, that really, really helps, because suddenly it's like, oh wait, there's so much more to the world. I completely forgot. Just a reminder. And it's like a meme online where people say touch grass, which is a metaphor for go outside, the grass, nature, life is there, life is happening, other things are happening. But yeah, just taking myself out of that, or even, like I said, going home and your mum tells you something as mundane as, can you take the bins out? And you're just like, oh yeah, there's this whole other world that I have. That's not the other thing. The other thing is not my life. I don't need to, I can let that go. And sometimes that, for me, that really helps me. That really, really helps. And again, like I said, it could be any situation. I could be arguing with someone about parking, And then 10 minutes later, I've obviously driven away and moved to, I don't know, I'm in my cousin's house. And I'm like, that's a distant memory. Like, I literally can let it go like that just by being in a different environment physically. That is one of my best techniques, and I advise everyone out there.
So you kind of make it into proportion of what you're going through. So, for example, in the grand scheme of things, that small kind of incident isn't something that's going to weigh heavily entire day. However, sometimes. However, in the instances where you can't escape it, and it's something that's in your head, and it's something that's weighing you down, how do you let those things go? Because that's something that's inseparable to you at that point, and it's always on your mind. How do you let those things go?
Maybe you can't. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on letting things go at this stage.
But I feel like in terms of your character, you're someone that doesn't retain things, and you don't hold.
Well, I'm thinking about, like, say with siblings, because you're at home. I can't remove myself from the situation.
Sure.
If I walk out, my mum's going to be like, calm down, sit down, you're not going anywhere. So if I had a debate or fight or something with my sister, and I felt like it was so big in that moment and it was going to be the biggest thing ever, and I can never, ever let this go. I don't know how I let it go. I think for me, it would still be the environment thing. Even if it's moving to the next room or something, or busying myself with something else.
Okay.
But also, I think it's a reflection, because you're like, where am I going to go with this? Where can we possibly? You think about the steps, right? You play it out in your head.
Sure.
What are we going to do? How are we going to solve this? What is me fighting or holding on to this going to lead to? Most likely nothing. Usually nothing. Usually, if you hold on to that rage, anger, you're going to get nothing from it at the end. Just the broken relationship, probably. Nothing else. So if you really think of the steps, like, where is this going to lead? Because it's not a movie. Sometimes in your head, I don't know about you, but you start playing out these fake scenarios. Well, that's just me. And then it's like, you start thinking, yeah, I'm going to, like, shout at them. I'm going to say this. There's arguments when great lines come into your head. It doesn't happen like that. That's not what's going to happen. Well, it doesn't. So, yeah, I think it's just thinking things through. I'm thinking, where am I really going with this? What do I actually want in this scenario?
That's really profound, because I think when you're in that process, especially when you're in heightened emotions, it's very difficult to actually be grounded and think about, okay, what will I achieve out of this? But the only thing that you can have control over is physically removing yourself. That's a great advice.
Yeah, physically remove yourself if you can from the situation.
On that note, I have a question to ask you.
I need to ask you questions, Mariam.
No, I'm going to ask you questions.
Go on then.
I'm hosting it.
No,
it's a very great segue.
Freshly grounded.
Yes, freshly grounded. It's a very good segue, because the first question is, think about someone that you recently had a disagreement with. Without telling them who they are, share 3 amazing qualities about them.
Okay, that's a really good question. And I'm going to ask you that straight back after I answer. 3 amazing qualities. It wasn't hard for me to think about the disagreement part. That was easy. Okay, so they are funny, on job, and most of the times a thoughtful person. It's my friend, and I'll tell her who it is afterwards.
You don't have to say who it was, but okay.
No, I will tell her after the show.
Okay, so my one is generous.
Okay.
This person's generous. This person is loving in their own way. It's not very explicit, but they're loving in some ways. And the third thing, amazing qualities. There's someone that is very punctual with prayer.
That's amazing.
Yeah, very punctual.
That is something to look up to.
Yeah,
that is so something to look up to. Yeah, I like that one. Mariam, can I ask you the next question?
Go ahead.
Why don't I have the question cards? Thank you. Okay, so... Oh, am I just going with any question that's here?
Yeah.
What took you the longest to understand about me?
Oh, I don't know, because I didn't...
misunderstand me.
Yeah, I just felt like... No, I don't feel like there's been any instance where I thought, wow, I really need to think about how she is as a person. I think it's
Why
just...
don't we reframe the question?
Like, I think in terms of answering that question, I think just understanding your personality. And the more I got to know you, the more respect I have for you. in terms of how, like I said, like you're full of energy, you're very positive. You don't seem to be the type of person that holds grudges, or that's why I asked you about letting go, because it just seems that you can only have a consistent positive energy if you don't allow negative energy to kind of overpower you. And this is what I see about you. And I
that is good. That's made me laugh.
But look at that, see? You're someone that works extremely hard.
Okay, thank you. You don't have to carry on. I feel like you've accidentally just gone into this.
Yeah, I think you work extremely hard, and I think you're very ambitious. And I'm so proud of you in terms of how you produced an entire documentary. And I love how this process that you talked about was over the show, over the couple of months, and how you were so passionate about getting into these sectors, and you didn't wait for those opportunities to come to you. You made those opportunities for yourself. So
thank you so much.
That's my understanding, and like how...
I appreciate that. Well, I should talk about understanding you.
Can we go to the next question?
What? Do I want to get to answer the question for you?
It's up to you.
Okay, then. This is really good. In what ways are you a difficult person?
You tell me, Sonia.
No, that's not fair. It's about introspection.
Okay. What ways am I a difficult person?
What do you think? I mean, you might not know. I might not know what's difficult about me. So,
I think I have a lot of emotions that are heightened. I think I'm someone that, and that might be because I have a lot of trauma probably, and that informs my way of kind of thinking. But I think that makes me a challenging person sometimes, because I sometimes I allow those emotions to sometimes dictate me, and this is why introspection is very important, to kind of understand and position yourself in situations, to understand that this is an instance, this is your reaction, this is the consequence of it, and that's not to invalidate what your feelings are, but sometimes I think my emotions become disproportionate to the situation, so that makes me quite challenging. Second thing that I think that makes me a difficult person is...
it's okay if there's only one thing.
No, I'm not going to think. Okay, you ask something. I'll think about something else.
What's difficult about me?
I think that's the most challenging thing about me. If someone had to intimately know me, then they'll know that this is one thing that I really struggle with.
I think it's amazing that you have just reflected and figured, I put that in quotation marks because it might not be true, but figured out what you think is maybe difficult about you. And I think if everybody did that, the world would be a better place, because it'd be good for us to know what is not so great about hanging out with us. I don't know. I sometimes ask my friends for feedback. It's good to do that. Mm-hmm. And one time my friend did say to me, Sonia, it's like you had this thought that maybe other people had, but you shouldn't have said it. And I was like, okay. So sometimes it's about, and I am really working on this, not saying the obvious thing, even though it's obvious.
This is how I get that feedback a lot.
You can't, yeah, sometimes. I know, because it's, you know, you think it's obvious, everyone's thinking it, but you shouldn't say it all the time. And that's definitely something
I think that's just your character.
I'm working on.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you do it maliciously, though. I don't think any of our difficulties are
I don't
malicious.
think so. 90% of our people in this vicinity aren't malicious. But I think that's for me. I'm thinking about it. I've definitely got feedback. We give each other feedback, me and my friends. I think it's a really good thing to do.
It's very good. That's very healthy.
Huh?
That's very healthy.
Healthy, yeah. Sometimes it's scary because then we start being like, well, you. And it's like, no, this is healthy. We are trying to help each other progress. And we still love each other through this. So the word vomit or whatever, saying the first thing that comes to your mind, or the obvious thing, that's one of my things. And yeah, that ties in with sometimes being offensive. So I might be offending someone.
But I do feel like you'd be the first to apologise.
I try. I'm telling you guys, this is a hack. And I don't know if this... Don't always follow this idea, but just checking the time. I'm not running out of time. This is a hack. If someone's told you you've done wrong, definitely listen. Listen. Don't try and talk. Don't justify it. If it is wrong, like, you know it's wrong, it's accepted. Don't just think, oh, well, I thought if it's wrong, it's wrong. But just say sorry. It's so simple. For me, I think that's one of the best things. Just say sorry. Or if they said sorry to you, you're like, they said sorry. They are apologetic. Be apologetic. Don't say it for the sake of it, but say it. Because once you do, you can just move on and you've learned from that experience. It's just a hack for me, because if you don't say sorry, you're suddenly weird and like closed off. And I don't know. It's like, just accept it. You've accepted you're wrong, so just say sorry and move on. Say sorry fast.
Yeah, there's no need to hoard any feelings if you can just apologize, because every human being makes mistakes. And I think it shows that you're responsible for your actions. And you care about you value the relationship above what your ego is.
Exactly. If you don't value the relationship, that's a whole other story. Mariam, before I continue with these cards, I actually had a point that I just remembered on how you're letting things go or moving forward or just,
Yeah.
And it's a silly one and it's becoming a bit of a meme. But it's not, for me, it was, okay, so it's this quote. And you could bring Islam into it, and I hope you do. And the quote is, "It's not real." So I love the situations you're in, and I know we're running out of time. I love the situations you're in and whatever argument you might have had and so on. None of it really matters most of the time because it's not... Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, there's always going to be something that's more important in life. Go on, you validate this for me.
I think we should unpack that a bit more later on.
Okay, but I thought we're running out of time.
So I think maybe in the next half we can talk about like what you mean in terms of how do we put weight to situations and how does that define that, and whether that reaction is... I think all reactions are validated, but we will discuss this in the next half. So do join us and we look forward to hearing your contributions. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to Sisters Speak. In the first half of the show we talked about our reflections, and then I think we're going to continue the conversation and then talk about our main topic today, which is about integrity and introspection. So I'm just going to go back to Sonia's last thought. Do you want to kind of carry it away?
Okay, yeah, so, but I do need, like I said, Shahana, I need your help on this a little bit. Not Shahana, sorry, Mariam. Sorry, it was just a break time and I was talking to my friend Shahana. Shout out Shahana, I love you. Anyway, sorry. Also, if Fareen joins online, that would be great. We were just waiting for her, but if she comes, she comes. Sorry, Mariam. So back to the point I was saying earlier, because obviously our whole show is on introspection, so we will be talking like this throughout the whole show today. And yes, I was saying a lot of things aren't real. And I mean that metaphorically. Because obviously it's real. Your feelings in that moment is real. Everything that happened was real. It's not fake. That's not what I mean. I mean that the world and life, I know it's such a, I don't know what the word is, existential way of thinking, but the world and life is kind of bigger than that. And like sometimes you have to leave things in the situation that they're in and think, is that going to affect my actual life trajectory and where I'm going and my path and my deen and, you know, my faith, my relationship with God? Like sometimes you do have to think like that. I know it sounds like, okay, Sonia, like, you know, when people say like, oh, you're going to die anyway, it's silly, I put that in quotation marks again, because it's like, okay, but I'm still feeling upset now. But actually sometimes you have to think that to yourself, like, actually none of this really matters. I have my own journey and my own things to think about, including faith, including, I don't know, my personal reflection and progress. And that's kind of what I mean. I didn't do a really good job at explaining it, and I will find the whole article where I read this before.
I think what, like, my understanding of like your thought is just the proportionality, understanding what weight does this instance have in your, like you said, in the trajectory of your life. And that's not to say that it needs to be binary, that you completely dismiss your feelings. I think it's just attributing a certain amount of energy and weight that is conducive for yourself in terms of your well-being and in terms of what you want out of that situation.
Yeah.
And I think what it reminds me of is that whole essence of you don't have control of your circumstances, but you have control of your reaction.
Yes. Do you want to say that again?
You don't have control over your circumstances, but you definitely have control of your reaction. And I think that's something that's really powerful, because you can recognize that the way you kind of process things and the way you respond to things it's going to elicit certain emotions. And so if you exercise introspection, like we're going to speak about, and you recognize, actually this person has enraged me, but if I keep lamenting on this actually is going to affect me negatively, and I'm not going to feel great about myself. And that's not to say that you can't have those feelings at that moment and you can't feel them and you can't be present, but it's just how much time are you going to give to that.
Yeah, and again, that is an adult thing. I think it's maturing. It's realizing that I don't have to react with the first thing that I'm feeling. the emotions and so on. It's like what you said, govern your emotions. And I know we've spoken about this before, but it really is such an important topic. And this therapist once, I think I said it on this live radio again, it was like an old proverb that's like, we run things now run we, which means don't let things run you run things. You're in control of your mind and your reactions. Don't let the circumstances change what you're going to do in that situation.
And I think a lot of the times when you are present with yourself, you can understand, like, where's your reaction coming from? Is it because you feel entitled, or is it because your boundaries have been crossed? You learn a lot about. Let me try to say this again. You learn a lot about yourself in those instances, and this is why we want to focus a lot on introspection. So this will lead to my first question, actually. So, Sonia, how does introspection contribute to personal growth and self-awareness?
Well, I mean, it's everything we kind of just have said, because when you take time to think about your steps and where a certain action is going to take you, that's introspection, then it helps your personal growth, because you're going to start changing the way you do things and changing the way you react to things. So just normal actions, and that can help you progress in life.
Absolutely. And maybe on that note as well, can you share a personal journey of introspection that led to a significant self-discovery or change in your life?
Oh, no, I can't. I was literally bringing up the plan because I'm going to ask you the question. So can we put that question back on you?
I didn't expect this to be like this, for sure. Can I share a personal journey of introspection? I think I'm someone that really values introspection. And I think if I'm thinking about this year, I've faced a lot of challenges in terms of relationships and personal friendships and all of that type of things. And understanding where do I position myself. And those kind of relationships have elicited aspects of myself that I thought I took care of, but actually it manifested in very ugly ways, in ways that I wasn't comfortable with. And that made me think, okay, now actually I need to take a pause and understand myself a little bit more better and understand how does a person's dynamic impact me. And if I'm not comfortable with that, do I withdraw? Or how do I respond to it? Or how do I communicate? Whether I want to kind of continue pursuing these kind of relationships and that type of thing. And I think that's how I kind of recognize is, how do I compartmentalize different relationships in my life? How much energy do I give to a person that makes me feel good, that someone that inspires me, someone that creates a space where I can cultivate good habits? And then at the same time, how much energy do I give a person who might not be able to provide me those things? However, there's someone that's significant in my life. How much energy do I put to that? So then I have a limited amount of energy. And then there's people that I had to compartmentalize, that I completely have to remove. And I think that kind of process is something that I'm learning this year. I feel like it's because I meet so many new people and I get inspired very quickly, and I love learning new things about people. So I try to give people the time to understand them, and I assume best of them. And then sometimes I think one of the kind of reflections I have is, I think because I try to look so extensively on the good about a person, I kind of become blinded of the qualities that are not, they're quite self-destructive. And I think that's something that I had to really internalize this year, that I can have a good opinion of someone, but however, if they consistently show me that they've got destructive qualities, it's okay for me to withdraw. And it doesn't mean that I've judged that person. It's just that's how they are in that moment, and it's not healthy for me. And however they kind of navigate their life, that's God's judgment. I don't need to attribute to that or contribute to their lives. So yeah, I think
that led to a huge change in your life.
I think I'm on that process. And it's similarly, I think the same thing has happened where I've met people that have consistently very good character and they've had integrity, and they've withdrawn completely and they've become reticent. However, my reaction could be, I could be very negative. However, I just want to feel like have assumed best of them. And I think that's something that I feel like when you don't go through both kind of areas where one person has treated you so badly and you just assume best of them, and it's gone really negatively, you kind of learn that balance. So for me, it's just kind of learning from those processes. I think this year I learned a lot about people. I think it's an ongoing thing.
I think it's amazing that you think about these things again. I know that's what this whole show is about, but it's only because of radio I genuinely think that I've actually thought about my actions and the things I do and so on. Or maybe it was going to happen as I grow older anyway. But yeah, I think you've made some really good points in terms of obviously when you meet new people and how you react and the assumptions you make and all of this stuff. Like, it's something that you should make note of and think about how you're going to be in these situations. So thank you for that, Maria. I'm the host now.
I want to add one more
Go ahead.
thought on that. I think one of the things I really have reflected this year on is how I feel around people. If I'm feeling like I have to shrink to someone that I'm not, and I can't be my authentic self, then I should not be in that company.
That is so perfect. I wish everyone could hear that right now. Because a lot of us change who we are, or like you said, shrink, or we just aren't ourselves in any format. And if you are, that's not nice. That's not comfortable. And it's a lot of energy and a lot of work. So you shouldn't have to do that. And there's going to be a space for you that exists. So you don't.
And those people are the people that are going to help you, reach your ambitions, and they're going to cultivate a safe space for you. But you should never shrink around the company around you. You don't need extrinsic validation to be yourself. And that's why introspection is so important, because once you recognize your own principles and you recognize what makes you happy, then everyone else's opinions won't sway you. So I think that's really, really important.
Thank you so much, Mariam. And
are you going to host this now? Ask the questions.
I'm going to host this now. Okay.
Over to you, Sonia.
Thank you so much. And going to look at the next question, which are, what are some practical techniques or methods for individuals to engage in introspection effectively?
So I think when you're thinking about introspection, you're thinking about yourself and how you respond to things and how to react to things. I think another element is, again, what your core beliefs, what your principles are, what your values are. And even in another area is your emotions, understanding your emotions, because people feel emotions differently. And whilst they all have overarching kind of same definitions, how I feel happiness is going to be different to you, and how I feel anger is going to be different to you, and how that manifests is going to be different. So understanding how your emotions impact you and impact the people around you and how that is elicited is an aspect of introspection. So I think recognizing those things, and the way you recognize it is you evaluate yourself. You evaluate yourself in situations where you've been confronting something that is challenging, or you've been confronted with someone that's hurt you. How did you respond to that, and how did that make you feel?
Do you have any, sorry to interrupt, but like any actual practical methods? Like, would you say sit down and think about it, or write it down, or?
No, I think that's a process,
what
right?
Is it? What do you
so
think?
first you need to understand yourself. There is no effective method unless you understand yourself. So you have to, for me personally, it's about understanding those areas. So your emotions, your values, just completely understanding yourself. And then the effective method is really evaluating yourself, because the way you can ascertain yourself is looking at your own life and reflecting, okay, in these instances I responded to situations like this, and I think it's really different. Like, it's very, I think there isn't a one standard method, because everyone does it differently, but it's just having that space and being present is very important.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I understand that. It's like you said, it's more important to understand yourself first, and then those rest of it will come to you naturally. So the next question, I'm going to say first, I'm happy to answer a question as well. And it's in the integrity side, because I just want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So first of all, if you want, you can give the kind of definition of what integrity is or what it means to you.
I think it's just having a strong essence of morality and principles, and allowing that to dictate and inform your worldview and how you interact with people.
Okay, that's really good. Thank you. So when I think of integrity, right, because I've not even just worked, just in real life, like you come across so many different types of people. That's natural, right? Yeah. And you can kind of tell, well, in your own opinions and perspectives, who has moral values that align with yours, who's got a lot of integrity, or what you believe to be integrity, and you you can kind of judge, or not judge, but like you make your own kind of opinions and feelings about people depending on their integrity. That is what I believe, right? So the question is, how does introspection intersect with maintaining integrity? It's a lot. You can go first if you wish.
You want to go first?
Well, to be honest, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we were talking about. So like introspection we've got, so like thinking about how you react to things, thinking about actions, thinking about how you deal with the situation. That is so essential to integrity, because when you don't kind of hold on to those things, where's your morals, where's your principles, and what are you standing for? Again, like, who are you? What's important to you? When you don't have that, you don't have any integrity, because we don't know what it is, what matters to you. And again, I do think that is part of becoming a bit older and not older, but like becoming an adult and maturing, because you actually have to think about these things, because people are going to look at you and treat you a certain way, because that's how the world works. And you're going to have to go into places where people don't know you, so your first impression might matter a lot. So you need to know these things about yourself. You can't figure it out every time you be in a new place. You should know these things about yourself and know how you want to handle a situation, so you don't have regrets as well. I think that's very important. You don't want to leave a place or a situation and think, I totally messed that up, or I regret how I dealt with that situation. That's why introspection is so important for your integrity, because you can stay true to yourself and think, no, I know how I dealt with that. That's me. That's my integrity. That's how I deal with stuff. So that's kind of my opinion on the situation.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. One of my reflections on that is, I love how our religion provides that for us. It provides us those structures in place in terms of we have a moral code for us to follow, and we have to adhere to that. Yeah. Simultaneously, we have to be reflective. And we even do that through prayer. 5 times a day, we punctuate our day by praying to God and to reflect. And I think those things are really intertwined, because on one hand, you are submitting yourself to a greater power than yourself, and ultimately Allah. And at the same time, you're taking the onus on yourself to be reflective and be proactive in terms of making sure that who interacts with you, they don't have a negative they don't feel negative around you, because you're someone that's going to emanate positive energy. So I think for me, those things are very intertwined, because you have to, like you said, you have to know yourself first to be able to understand what values you uphold. And that's why integrity for me is something that I really, really try to strive for, because I think when you have integrity and when you strive to have adhere to certain morals and principles, that's going to dictate and shape even how you have compassion towards yourself as well. And I think that's really, really important, because it's not just about how you interact with others, it's about how you interact yourself and how your world view of yourself.
Yeah, that is very true. And thank you so much for answering the question as well. I want to talk about like a real life kind of situation. I know it's going to be hard, but if you can think about a time where you've encountered a situation where it was so crucial for someone to uphold, or not uphold, for like introspection was crucial for someone to uphold their integrity.
Do you want to answer that? I think that's quite loaded for me.
I think that can happen to anyone at any time as well. Like I gave myself as an example, and again I go back to the whole thing of, you don't want to walk away from something and regret it. You don't always want to be thinking, I didn't like the way I dealt with that, and always constantly be thinking and have anxiety, because it can cause yourself some stress. Again, it's about you, about how you are dealing with it. So you can cause you stress in the situation because you're always worried or always wrong, in quotation marks, because it might feel wrong to you. I think that's, again, why it's so important to just have your own morals. No one's going to give them to you. Although you did mention, obviously, we are lucky in our religion, in Islam, we have that. So use that. If you don't know where else to turn to and you don't know what kind of guidance and pathways to follow, that's there for you. And then branch from there and think, oh yeah, I can resonate with that. It reminds me of, I had a work colleague, and she is not a Muslim, she was a Christian, and her name was Victoria. And I'm saying it on radio because it's fine. What I'm about to say is a good thing. And she was so polite. like from the minute I met her. And sometimes the things she was asking for wasn't necessarily something you needed to be polite about. But it was always, may I, do you mind if, and she didn't have to. These people weren't her bosses or managers or anything. It could be a colleague, it could be me, it could be someone beneath her, it could be, you know how things are in workplaces, structures and so on. Nothing to do with that. She was polite in all aspects of her life. Lunchtime, may you please pass the mayonnaise or whatever. And that was just so... little things like that. And I was like, do you know why? Because you can never hold her and say, well, she was rude, or I didn't like the way she said that about me, or anything. And hopefully she would have never regretted it when she went home, any situations that she might have been in or come across, because she knew she dealt with it with the way that she has always spoken, and she's always been polite. And that's her, like, you know, that's her integrity in a way.
I love that.
I know, and I was just thinking about that. So
maybe all strive to be like that. That's how I would like to be.
I know. So I think that's so important. Like I said, that's an example as well, real life situation. And I'm sure that introspection was done one day when she was maybe younger or a child or any time. I don't know. She must have thought to herself, you know what, I always want to say, may I or can I? I always want to be polite no matter who the person is. That's a really good thing to have.
I must start doing that now.
Yeah, we can try.
We can try.
But yeah, I think even little things like, are you always going to greet someone when you see them? As well, that's just part of it. Little things are part of that, right?
It's very, very intrinsic in our religion.
Yes, exactly. So until I worked in my workplace, I never knew that everyone kind of salams each other. I know it's normal now when you think about it. Like, of course you do. You just greet someone, assalamu alaikum. It's not even a thought, right? But for me, before, I didn't do that. And it's not wrong or anything. It's just something I didn't do. And now when you do it, you're like, that was a nice thing to do. Maybe that could be part of my kind of, you should have a little pack in your mind of, these are the things that I do no matter what.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think for me as well, like, I really think about how do I come across, and being polite. I really, really like it when people are polite, and it makes me feel like you just narrate this story. It just makes me feel like, how can I use that example and put that into my own kind of interactions, and like, how am I going to do that tomorrow? Like, how can I do that? Because I think it's such a beautiful example, because, and it also makes me think about how the Prophet ﷺ, when he was given prophethood, no one could assassinate his character. It's actually in Surah Furqan. They called him a magician because they had no reason to kind of assassinate his character. So they just had to say he was a magician, he's doing magic.
Yeah, so even if they want to slander him,
you can't, because that person has consistently showed good character. And I think when you humble yourself, that's when you can able to understand that you do have value in yourself, but you value the people around you, and you understand that you're not entitled, and that's why you ask these questions. You're polite because you're valuing other people around you, and you're giving them that significance. So I think it's really important.
That's amazing. And I actually just want to touch on something you said, because you said it in the first half of the show. Life has humbled me. Do you want to talk about that a little bit before we end the show? Yeah,
so I think just generally, I feel like as I'm growing older and as I'm going through situations, and it's not even like, I think the last year was even more challenging this year. I wouldn't even say it's not nowhere near in terms of like the gravity of things, but it's just, I feel like as time is going and the more understanding I'm gaining from situations, the more it's humbling me, and the more it's kind of my reaction to things is becoming kind of subdued. I don't feel like I need to react to a lot of things anymore. I just try to understand and empathize and allow those kind of qualities that I've always wanted to cultivate. I feel like now I'm more in tune to that, because I'm starting to see that more consistently in terms of.
So, but how would you say, because saying the kind of phrase "life has humbled me," a lot of the times people see that as a negative.
No, I think it's like the best thing that's happening to me. I think life is humbling me. I understand that Allah has given me a purpose in my life, and of course I'm going to be held accountable, and that accountability, I feel like is kind of dictating everything for me in terms of like how I interact with people, how I interact with myself, how I even just go through my day, and even in terms of like the kind of situations I have. Like, I understand I'm a human being and I will make mistakes, but then it's humbled me enough to understand that actually I need to say sorry, I need to take accountability. Similarly, if someone's wronged me, I just want to assume best of them, because life has humbled me so much to the point where I just feel like, but why should I like
that's
think
so
negatively?
Beautiful, Mariam. That is so amazing.
It's-
we should all be humbled from time to time.
Yes, life is really humbling.
A humbling experience.
It's such a humbling experience.
Honestly, in these situations, I know I've said adult and maturity 100 times, but I do think of like our parents and uncles and aunties and just older people that we know in life, because a lot of their
They become more quiet as they go older.
but I don't mean quiet as in volume.
As in
low.
volume, no, it's just your wisdom.
Wisdom. Age doesn't necessarily mean wisdom, but I'm glad that it usually does. Put it like that. Sometimes you don't see it in people and you're like, where's the wisdom in you? But people can be young and wise, and I think you're getting there already. Alhamdulillah.
I think what it is that you understand human beings to be human beings, and so if you were in that position, you might have reacted in that same way and their circumstances, and that's not to justify their behavior, it's just to humanize them and understand them. And so at that point you can withdraw yourself because you know that you can't rationalize with them and negotiate with them, and their energy is going to make you feel negative, or you can communicate with them. You have that choice at that point, and I think that's something that's really humbled me, because I know I have that choice.
Wow. And life humbles everyone. Like, no matter who you are, where
I think
you
it's a
are.
positive. I've never seen it to have negative connotations. Do you want to talk about that?
I have seen it. I don't think it, but I've seen it like it's a situation where, I don't know, you might have money or you might have something, and then something goes wrong and you're like, whoa, I've been humbled. So that's the
I
kind
know,
of,
for me it's like a reconfiguration, because you realize what's important in terms of your priorities.
that's really good. That's a positive way to look at it. I think in general the word humble is supposed to be a good thing. We are supposed to be humble, right?
Yeah.
So it should be a positive thing when you say life has humbled me. What do you think, Mariam?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think we've covered multiple things in this show, and we haven't even touched the other aspects.
But we were introspective.
We're being introspective. And I think personally for me, I think for anyone out there as well, just take them time to understand yourself and give yourself space and scope. And even if you're friends with someone, also give them that feedback as well. I think is really important. And what you mentioned, having friends that can actively tell you that this is something that you can work on, and we can work on it together.
Yeah.
I think that's a good mark of a good friendship. And secondly, in terms of integrity, I think we can do multiple shows on that, because refinement of character is something that's within our religion. So thank you, Sonia, for your contributions today.
Thank you,
And
Mariam.
thank you for listening to everyone, and we hope to see you in the next show. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.